So yeah, it's been a hot minute since I've posted, but here I am. So what did I want to do today? I wanted to make a video that is kind of useful for Marvel Future Fight players because I've seen a lot of accounts that have very poorly built characters, and I want to dedicate one video into showing how I build characters, and I think this is the best way to build characters in general. I'll be giving my thoughts on how to do it, and I'm going to be showcasing how to do it with this Mystique that I have here, who has not been touched. Yeah, she's been taken to level 70, but apart from that, that's it. I'm looking at her stats right now. These are untouched stats. These are the normal stats that she has, plus my card stats, of course. And we see that we're only overcapped on skill cooldown. And it's important to assess this when building characters so that you know what stats you want to go for. So the first thing I want to do here is I want to just check, everything that's going on. So I'm going to look at our fourth gear over here. I know that the option is recovery rate. I know that that's something that I can change into another stat at a future time. But then if it's a useful stat, you might want to keep it. Then you want to look at her skills and passives in order to understand where she can get extra stats potentially, right? You want to check the tier 2 passive. She has nothing here that contributes to the stats that you can build on her character. Yeah, you check every skill, and it also gives you an idea of what kind of rotation you want to be going for here. So, so far, none of the skills have any buffs. This fourth skill, there you go. So you see there's a crit rate buff of 45%. So when you see something like that, that kind of gives you an idea of what stats you can save building on. For players that don't know, I'm going to list down all the important stats here and what percent they cap at. I'm going to arrange it from most important to least important, in my opinion. So when you see something like crit rate 45%, that means you can basically build your crit rate up to 30% given that crit rate caps out at 75, since you'll be hitting the cap anyway with this skill. Yeah, and just to clarify, skills do not bring you over the fixed cap. If you're at 65 and your character gets a skill that buffs them for 30% crit rate when you use it, it'll cap out at 75% anyway, regardless. So yeah, it's important to know this information. Okay, the first thing I like to do when getting a new character is building an ISO 8 set. And yeah, rolling for ISO 8 sets are expensive and they're time consuming. So while rolling for a good ISO 8 set, such as Power of Angry Hulk or Overdrive, you can use it doing more important matters like reflecting on life and whatnot. Is there a point to making a guide catered to new players for a game that's in such a bad state? A big portion of the player base is composed of veteran players, so they'll find this video useless. And any new player that stumbles onto this video, do I want them to play this game? This game is dying. Do they really deserve to be part of this mess? Is this right? Is there a point to all this? Will the Marvel Future Fight devs ever fix their game? Oh, we got Power of Angry Hulk. Oh, yeah, woo! Okay, sometimes that'll take longer because, you never really know. RNG can be good and can be bad to you sometimes. But yeah, you can never go wrong with Power of Angry Hulk or Overdrive. In some cases, one might be better than the other, but generally they're pretty much interchangeable. Hawk's Eye, maybe if you're newer, but I would advise Power of Angry Hulk or Overdrive nonetheless. Maybe if you want to save gold, it's not a bad thing to settle on. It's very unfortunate that there's so many garbage ISO 8 sets that we have to work with, but whatever, it's here. So now that you have your ISO 8 set, you can equip the perfect ISO 8s. Make sure to understand what attack you're working with. Most characters go with physical or energy attack, so you gotta know which one to equip, because if you equip an ISO that doesn't buff their attack, they will not benefit from it. Some characters like Victorious and Hulk scale their attack off of HP, so you have to understand these things when building the character. This just applies for most things, right? I personally like to have the yellow ISO, the crit rate ISO, capped out so that it essentially gives me the max amount of crit rate that I'm going to be using overall, but that's just my preference to have. Of course, ideally, you want to have the whole ISO 8 set be fully awakened, but that might be very expensive for most players, so it's not necessarily something that's required. You don't even need to have the ISOs at a very high rank. Of course, it's far from ideal the lower rank they are, but regardless of what rank they are, as long as they're arranged in the correct combination, you will get the ISO 8 set bonus. So that's something important to note. So after equipping an ISO 8 set and equipping the proper ISOs, you want to check your details page for the stats that you currently have, and then after that, you want to equip an obelisk for your character. Generally, when picking out an obelisk, you want to know what kind of content you want to be using this character in. So for example, you want to know if you're going to use them for PvP or PvE. Now, depending on which one you want, for PvP, you want stats like immune to guard break, you want an invincibility stat. Those are kind of the important stats for PvP. Whereas for PvE, you desperately want a damage proc, and then more attacking stats such as, I don't know, elemental damage if you have an elemental damage dealing character, or crit damage, crit rate, whatever you need. For Mystique, I'm not really looking for crit rate because I know that it'll be very easy to cap, so I'm looking for something that is crit damage related. I also kind of want to try a hybrid obelisk on her, so something for PvP and PvE. Mainly an obelisk that would be one that consists of guard break immunity and a damage proc. That's the kind of obelisk I end up equipping on her, one that has guard break immunity, crit damage, and a 200% proc. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. The next part of character building I think is one of the more complicated parts. This is the Uru equipment portion of the building guide. Now, I was very confused by this when I was a new player, so I don't blame you if you're still confused about Urus. Now, I'll explain what I like to do generally, and I would also explain what I would advise to do, because those are two different things in this case. I like to use the Uru amplification option to try and get all slots amplified. But if ever the 10 rolls land on a 4-slot amplification, for most characters, I settle for it. For example, for a character like Mystique, I think I would settle on a 4-slot amplification because I think she's easier to cap out than other characters. Whereas possibly for a stronger character or for a character that I want to be strong and needs their stats to be capped out, I would insist on going for the 5-slot amplification. Now, of course, I wouldn't do this for a fodder character, for a Shadowland character. Possibly the furthest I'd go for a Shadowland character is use the 1-roll amplification to try and get 4 slots amplified. Because getting 4 slots amplified isn't hard, in my opinion anyway. You can just keep using the 1-roll to try and get 4. And that is what I would advise most players to do. Because if you keep trying to go for 5, it's gonna be very taxing on your gold total. And you're gonna get a lot of failures. You know how MFF loves their RNG? RNG is very, very painful here. And the return sometimes isn't even that good. But me, I don't like knowing that my characters aren't complete, so I tend to just go for the 5. When it comes to Uru amplification, it's really up to you how much you're willing to spend on building your characters in this case. So this is where we might differ. I wouldn't blame you if you differ from me, because the way I amplify the slots here, as you can see, very taxing on the gold, leaves me very depleted after building a character well, so there's that. After amplifying those slots, you want to put some Uru in them. Now for most, if not all characters, you want to have 2 Urus of the attack they use in every set of 5 available. So you want to have 2 slots on all 4, meaning you'll have 8 Urus of physical attack or energy attack on these characters. This will give you the max amount of attack possible for the character, which is a good thing no matter which way you look at it. And then, with the 3 remaining slots on all 4 gears, you want to look at what stats you're still missing, and you want to put on Urus that will help cap those out. So in Mystique's case, I'm still missing quite a bit of crit damage, so I'm gonna be equipping those after equipping the physical attack Urus. Now when looking at what rank of Uru you want to equip, of course, if you have them, you want to equip the 6-star Urus. But when building Urus, I'm very content with having just 5-star Uru because the stat buff you get from going to 5 to 6 isn't so large, and the RNG of getting one successful is so low. So it might not be financially worth it to try and go for 6-star Urus all the time. 5 stars will do it just fine. Now, of course, you can slap in an Odin's Blessing here and there if you have a couple, so that it would help you cap out those stats a lot easier, plus give your characters a little bit of an attack boost as well. I'm happy giving Mystique a few here because I know she'll be a great character, because she has been a great character since her introduction earlier this year, and I'm just kind of late to the party because I decided to wait until Black Friday to pick her up. But I digress. As you equip the Urus, you want to keep looking back at the stats page to see how much these Uru are changing your stats, because you don't want to keep equipping crit damage Urus and then you look back and realize that your character's already over capped, right? You want to just keep checking to make sure that you're still on track right here. So it's at this point that I realized the stats that I have are already at a decent place for me. Now I know that the crit damage isn't capped yet, but I feel like I'm happy with where that is. Another Uru would overcap it by a small amount, so I feel like it's not really worth to equip another one, right? So I'm happy with that. Yeah, you can add a bit of a type enhancement here or there, but I don't consider that essential to character building. I'm just doing it for Mystique here because I intend to use her in some PvP content, and the type enhancement does help her in that regard. So yeah, I finished building Mystique, and I'm gonna reward myself by awakening her potential, which is something that I had intended to do since buying her character. I think even since before that. But yeah, there it is. Her potential's awakened, and she's basically complete for me at this point, or at least complete to a satisfactory degree. I could give her a CTP in the future, but yeah, for now, I'm happy with where she is. So, some closing thoughts while I transcend her potential and all that. Building characters well is essential to getting the best out of your investment in Marvel Future Fight. Yeah, you could have the strongest new uniforms, you could have the strongest tier 3s, but they're not gonna hit as hard as they could unless you build them properly. I've seen far too many instances of players having terrible ISO 8 sets, terrible obelisks. Some players don't even amplify their Urus. You know, some people don't even equip Urus. All of these are important in order to unlock your character's true potential and in order to get the best out of them in whatever piece of content you're gonna take them in. So in that regard, I hope this video was helpful in showing how I build my characters and how I get the best out of them in order to guide you to possibly getting the best out of your characters as well. This is mainly directed at new players, but maybe there are some veterans out there who could take some tips from this video, because again, I've seen far too many instances of people who have played the game for a long time, who've invested money in the game, money on CDPs, money on premium cards, who have not built their characters well enough, and it kind of makes me feel bad because I know they're not getting the most out of their investment. Hopefully that's rectified with this video and with this guide. I hope that you were able to take something away from this video. Sorry for not uploading for a while. I don't know if anyone was waiting on videos, but I've just been really busy. Life has been kind of hard this time of year. But yeah, regardless, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something from it. And as always, thank you so much for watching.